officially welcome everybody. It's wonderful to have you joining us on our latest Zoom presentation. We're thrilled to be able to be talking about a product that we know and love, American Queen Voyages. So that's something that's very important that you notice there's a difference in branding, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. American Queen actually goes way back. Some of you may not know this, but Donna kind of got her start in the business right out of travel school. And when she did get that start, she liked the name Friendship Tours. The story, I'll tell it very quickly, but she was actually literally looking through the phone book, saw Friendship Tours, said, that might be a good place to work. Gave a call. There was no position at the time. My mom picked up. After a couple minutes talking to her, she said, come in for an interview, and hired her on the spot. And she actually created a position a few months later, which was the ship shop. So the ship shop was right around the 80s when it was started. If you remember that television show, The Love Boat, right? Cruising changed forever. And that actually led into Donna then having to go and learn cruising. Now, Donna, how do you learn to cruise?
I had to go on a cruise. So I said, sure, I'm ready. When do I go? My bag is packed. So
imagine your job tells you you must go out on a cruise.
Exactly.
So that's kind of what happened. And
twist my arm.
Really interesting. So many years later, she's a master cruise counselor, one of the few in New England. And not only do we, of course, have Donna, but we also have Barbara, who's on the call today, Heidi. A bunch of us are able to help and work with the ship shop. And you got to say that nice and slow, ship shop, right? And that is the cruise division of Friendship Tours. So a lot of you know my story, which of course is my mother started Friendship Tours in 1977. And the reason I'm sharing that with you is she had a long-standing belief that why go on a vacation with 5 people, which was in our family, you should go with 25 or 35. And that's exactly what we did. Well, I tell you that story because Christina, who's joining us from American Queen Voyages, has a really similar story. She also had a mother that was in the industry. Now, she also went to Johnson & Wales and has a degree in tourism, which is great. She studied abroad. I was fascinated here. She not only studied abroad, but she did it 3 times. So that's a pretty good gig, right? If you can get it. I think, Spain? And you can go ahead and unmute if you want, Christina.
Yeah, Spain, London, and Costa Rica.
Pretty good deal. And then also worked in the industry. So with some tour operators, some of you may have been on some of those tours, but throughout Europe, and had lots of experience. I know, why don't you share a little bit about your family and your love for travel?
Yeah, it's been in my blood. My mom's been in the industry for over 25 years. And as kids, we got to go on Disney cruises and Royal Caribbean and do all-inclusive vacations. And I just, got hooked, and I wanted to see the world. And I figured, the best way to do it is to work in the industry. So I decided really early on that I was going to go to school for travel and tourism, and we're lucky living in New England. Johnson & Wales has a great program in Providence. So I did that, and I quickly fell in love even more with the industry. And I knew I wanted to not work in an office and sort of be on the road. And I met some great people who were business development managers. And I just said, this is it. This is for me. I'm going to be traveling New England and working for some great products. So I've been doing this now for over 6 years, and I absolutely love it. And I love American Queen Voyages. I've only been with them for 3 months now, but it's a great product. And you can hear a little bit soon more about one of the itineraries that I actually got to enjoy.
So there are these really fun changes that have happened with American Queen Voyages. And I think we should just jump right in and kind of share what these are. It's special. You will notice some differences, and I'm going to start off basically sharing my screen, and we'll get right into this. So welcome. We're going to do a little voyage of our own today, and we're going to start off with this branding.
To really see North America, its land and people, you have to leave the roads. Introducing American Queen Voyages. Water has always been our way forward. Over the last decade, our red paddle wheel has been a symbol of progress, churning new possibilities and adventures ahead. We invite you to a deeper discovery of our vast continent in a way only the waters can provide. From the great American rivers to lake, ocean, and expedition voyages, where the engines run as silent as the Alaskan predators, where flinty New England oystermen warm up over salty fishtails, the chef shares her tantalizing secrets, and crawdaddy boils fill every corner of the table, where you meet real-world heroes and warriors. And you don't just see thoroughbreds racing. You go behind the scenes to the legendary stables. Intimate, authentic, and so personal an encounter it can only be yours. We use the waters to set a new course. We let the waters ever rising, flowing, living design the experience. Perpetually spinning, the big wheel keeps turning. Today, we reintroduce our travel experiences as American Queen Voyages. With all its style and grandeur, where the nights serenade you and the days feed your curiosity, where home is a feeling that always nourishes you. Today, we invite you to explore a North America unknown, where tradition lives and breathes and discovery runs deep, where the dance of life inspires you and the wildlife is sure to mesmerize. You'll discover territories incognita, old world comforts of the North and South, and places you imagined you knew. You may even discover new places within. Now is our time. Now is our moment to cast off the bow lines and venture forward. American Queen Voyages. River, lakes and ocean, expedition, discovery runs deep.
This is the moment.
So I love that little last discovery runs deep, and that is definitely the efforts that they're doing. And I know many of us are familiar with the river. Those, of course, would be the wonderful ships like the Empress, the American Queen, the Countess. But some of you may not be as familiar with the lake and ocean. So what once was referred to as Victory, they are amazing ships, the ocean ships, and then the Expedition, which is a very unique ship as well. And I know, Christina, if you go ahead and unmute, she was recently on the lake ocean ships, and I would love if you could share a little bit about that.
Yeah, so in the middle of February, I got to experience our Ocean Voyager, so one of our Lakes and Oceans ships, and they're both, we have two, and they're identical sister ships. They're small ships, so 200 passengers max, but it really was a fantastic product. I was so excited that they let me actually see the ocean product, and I did our southeast coast, our round trip Jacksonville, and I got to see Savannah and Charleston and Amelia Island and the Freeport Bahamas. But the ship overall was fantastic. It still had all of the amenities that we know and love of our rivers. So the all-inclusive, the amazing food, the great experiences, getting to have an excursion included every day. So you still get all that you would get on our rivers products, but just something different. So experiencing maybe Canada, or we have Mexico now, which is fantastic. You can even do New England. I know we live here, but maybe see something you've never seen before. But the product is really fantastic and different. And for you who maybe love the smaller ships, it's another product that you can go on and experience. And we have all 5 Great Lakes we go and visit. So it really is wonderful.
So Christina, how big is the ship? How many people generally?
Yeah, so it's maximum of 200 passengers. And I would say on average, between maybe like 100 and 150 you'll get. Some of our Great Lakes, you might see that it's full, but it's smaller than our American Queen. So if you've been on the American Queen before, she holds a little over 400. So our ocean ships really are small ships, and it's a great feel. We have an awesome lounge area, and we still have onboard entertainment. It's more like a 3-piece band. So they'll come on and entertain us while we're on our voyage. And we do games. They were doing, when I was on board, like a mystery game, which was really neat. And fantastic dining room, lobster every night, which I definitely indulged and had lobster, I think like 4 nights in a row, my lobster tail, and it was fantastic. And it really is great.
So that also kind of leads us into some of the things that you may not have picked up on, but they've gone to basically an all-inclusive. So with the menus, and food has always been a highlight. They have these special relationship where if you literally wanted to get a lobster tail each night, you can actually do that. Now we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit, but also your drinks, instead of just being at a certain time, those are now included as well. So, and they have a whole list of all the drinks that are included, and then there's a upscale package, but honestly, the main bulk of everything that you might possibly want for spirits, specialty drinks. I love on the American Queen, they have the best coffee machine you've ever seen. It's not only all your specialties, but it even makes iced coffee, which I love. So lots of great things. So we're going to get into a little bit more. We could do a whole presentation just on the new expedition ship and the ocean and Great Lakes. But today we're going to talk a little bit about the rivers specifically, and specifically a special program that Don is going to talk about. So for those that aren't 100% familiar with American Queen voyages and the river product, let's go ahead and just kind of go through the basics, is what they like to call it. So first off, all-inclusive voyages. So that specifically means from the beginning, when you actually travel, you'll arrive the first night on all of these products and actually have a hotel stay. So you're not flying and getting right on the ship. You'll actually do your pre-stay. And these are often in some of the really special hotels all around the country. I know when we do our Out West program, this is one of the hotels in Vancouver, Washington. There's also a beautiful hotel in Spokane. So depending on which way you go, but that's always included. Also would be your masterful cuisine. And this is where these special areas. So you see in the pictures, they have different options on board, the main dining rooms. They've got a front porch. They have different areas that you can kind of get more of an a la carte type of a thing. The menu, there's a side that always stays the same. And then of course, it's all about the local favorites. And Don, I know you got to experience this recently. Do you want to talk a little bit about food?
Sure, absolutely. And, just like you said, lobster and prime rib or steak offered every night. It's true, they do. And we had passengers at our table that did have lobster every day. So very fun. And we got to try new and different things. We had a gentleman at our table that every night he said, I'm going to try something from every local place. So he had frogs legs and all kinds of crazy things that, you wouldn't normally have at home. So it was really neat to be able to try something different. And the process in the dining room is nice. It's a very leisurely process. They're not rushing you through dinner. So it's a nice dining experience for sure.
And so the whole pace of river cruising. So when we talk about the rivers, it is a special way to see America. And it is not quick pace. There's river time. If you've ever been to Hawaii, you hear about Hawaiian time, right? Everything is, when we get to it, it's a little bit more relaxed and laid back. Well, the rivers are very much like that. This is not rushing you to all these places. This is about sitting and experiencing. And so with that, it is a uniquely American experience. And what I mean by that is, not only are you in these really great places of the heartland of the United States, but you also have a American crew that's there, that's going through, from the cuisine to even the people that are making up your room and just taking care of you. They've all got a unique story, and they're there basically to support you. So really, really fun. Of course, we talked about, now they have the unlimited beverage package, and we can certainly give you more details. Entertainment. So what I love is that consistently, prior to everything closing with cruising, they would actually rank in the top 10 of all cruise ships in the world when it came to entertainment. And when you think of it, this is a much smaller ship than maybe, like, Don, I know you were just on one of the largest ships in the world, right?
Yes, right.
And so that has
4,000.
diving, and it has all these different, technologies and things. Well, this beautiful boat actually has consistently, people rate the entertainment on par with any of that. And in some ways, people find that they even like it more. So you've got great entertainers, from simple music before you go into dinner, to the wonderful shows. The theater on the American Queen is actually modeled after the Ford Theater. It's a really neat place in itself. Then you also have special enrichment education that's on board. So depending on where you are, if you're in the Pacific Northwest, you might have the Native Americans on with you. If you're in some of these areas of the Civil War, you might have a Civil War reenactment. And of course, you can't go on a wonderful paddle boat like this without Mark Twain. So then, in addition to that, you have your hop on, hop off. So on all of the products, not just the rivers, they actually have shore excursions that are included. And Donna, do you want to talk a little bit about hop on, hop off and your experience
Sure,
with that?
sure. I love this. This is so nice. The coaches, and they call them steam coaches, which is kind of fun. They follow you, on your journey. So you have the same drivers, and you have, I believe it's like 3 or 4 coaches. And as you, every day on your cruise, you choose a time that you would like to get off the next day and get onto your hop on, hop off tour. So what's nice about it is that you have given a map every day in your cabin and of the port, and you can choose which of the stops you'd like to spend some time at. So a lot of people will get onto the coach, and they might ride it all the way around, like past all of the points, and see, kind of what the air lay of the land looks like. And then the next time it swings around, which the coaches just continually travel in this, on the map, you can stay as long or as short at each place as you'd like. So I think that's kind of nice. And they also give you suggestions on about how much time they think you would need at each place. So it's it's kind of a self-guided tour. Once you get to each place, you have guides that meet you and talk about the place that you're visiting. It's just a really nice way that they do it. And you get to know the drivers, and you just wait in that certain spot outside. They pick you back up, and they keep going. It's really very
Local
nice.
experts from each of the
Yep,
areas actually are on
exactly.
to advise. Now, in addition to that, there are some shore excursions that you can purchase, and we can go over those as well, that kind of are more enhancements. And when we get into the next bit of our itineraries, we talk, even at the top of the American Queen, she does have fitness and wellness center. So there is a small pool. There is a small exercise room, because I know you all need to go out and make sure we're continuing to get our waistline in good shape. They have these wonderful bikes that can be borrowed. They do actually have a spa, of course, not included, but they do some treatments and some massages. And you can always get hiking sticks. So those sticks in the bottom view there. So that's a little bit about that. Unlimited Wi-Fi. You do not have to pay for the Wi-Fi on board. It actually exists. You are a moving target when the boat is moving. So remember that it's not always like 5G or anything like that, but it is great. One of the things I love is they actually will do pilot house tours. So if you want to know how you navigate the river, not only do they have wonderful captain, but they actually have what's called a river lorian. This is a person that his job is to talk about the ecology, the history, all about the river, the animals, and he'll actually do different talks. But when you are in a port, they will actually do pilot house tours. So in addition to that, there are suite levels, and with that comes some butler things, which is kind of fun. If you want to know more about that, we can talk about that as well. Gratuities. So the one thing that is not included in the price would be the gratuities, and this gives you an idea. So on the rivers, $19.50 per day, and this would be your wait staff and everybody that cleans and all of that. Lake and ocean, it gives you a price, and expedition as well. So this gives you a list of who that exactly goes to. Of course, if you have somebody that gives you wonderful service and you want to do more, you certainly can, but these are kind of the gratuities. Anything else that we want to mention about that, Donna or Christina?
No, I think that covers it.
Perfect. So then before we get into the main itinerary that we're going to talk about today, these are some of the trips that are available. So the Pacific Northwest, they often call it in the footsteps of Lewis and Clark, on the American Empress, which she is actually the largest paddle wheeler west of the Mississippi. So really, really neat. She's an amazing ship, a boat. I always have to correct myself. They are boats. This is October 23 to October 31. Your highlights, of course, your transportation to the airport, flights from Bradley, all of the transfers, the hop on, hop off tour, one night pre-stay. This is going to start in Vancouver, Washington, and then it's going to make its way going, so basically west to east. Breakfast and sightseeing at that first evening or first hotel that you stay at that morning before you go to the ship, then boat, 7-night cruise aboard the Steamboat American Empress, onboard entertainment in the evening, daily lectures by the River Lorian, award-winning cruise cuisine, and the service is just wonderful. In the Pacific Northwest, you're going to have Pacific Northwest type fare. So of course you're going to have some salmons and different foods that you would get up in that area. It is all kinds of things included, and this is just a general idea of some of the pricing. These are where the river goes. So on this one, starting all the way over to the left of the screen in Vancouver, Washington, making your way along the river through the gorges. On this, there are some wonderful shore excursions that are in addition to all the ones that are included. So if you want to go to Mammoth Falls, that might be somewhere that you actually choose to add on. So there are different ones, and we picked out a couple of the different pictures for you to take a look at. And if you want more information on our website, friendshiptours.net, go to the ship shop section, and on the cruises, you'll see the different, they're all by date. And so if you go to October 23 of 2022, you will come across this trip, click on it, and at the very bottom in blue, it'll say, for more information, to see the flyer, you click on the flyer, and it'll actually pull up exactly what you see on your screen. This gives you all the information about booking and everything that you need. The next one that I want to talk about is going to be December 4th. So something American Steamboat at the holiday time is really unique. So this particular one, again, gives you the highlights on here. You're going to be celebrating with the American Queen Voyage family and return with treasures and memories of the season. On this, you'll do the lower Mississippi River. It has holiday gala, bonfires on as you make your way, holiday decor, really, really fun. And so I thought I'd show you that itinerary. Looks like this. So these are the ports that you'll be going to. And that picture on the bottom is an example of what that bonfire experience is kind of like. So very, very fun. The full flyer is again on our website. You can get all the details. And if you want more information, go ahead and give us a call. And we're happy to share that with you. May 14th, we'll be doing basically a wonderful part of the river. We'll be doing the lower Mississippi. So this one is going to start in Memphis. It's going to finish in New Orleans. You can see again, Memphis to New Orleans. I love this one for Vicksburg. If you're a Civil War aficionado, the battlefield there is unbelievable. Nottoway is a special, unique program that they do just for American Queen voyages. And of course, having time in New Orleans at the end is always great to do a tour. So really, really nice. And again, the flyers on our website. This one is in May. And the last one that we're going to talk about today is actually on the Countess. So brand new in 2020 was the American Countess. So she is a combination. There are actually 4 river ships in total. So the Empress, which is out west, and then in the middle of the country, you have the American Queen, which many of you are familiar with, the Duchess. The Duchess is more of a boutique product. So she's modern. She does, of course, have a paddle wheel, but she's got these wonderful suites in different areas. Well, with the Countess, they kind of married the best of the Queen and the best of the Countess together. So this itinerary is a little bit different. It's actually going to go from Red Wing all the way to St. Louis. So this is the upper Mississippi. And it's one of my favorite parts because we're going to show you some of the different rivers on the next part. But the Mississippi, how many have ever heard the muddy Mississippi? Well, when you go up north, it doesn't look anything like that. And these are some of the pictures of the Countess. So you can tell inside that she does have a little bit of a modern flair with all these nice amenities and things in the grand open areas. But again, she's got the paddle wheel on the back and all those things that we love about the Queen. So this is going to be a trip that's in July. And this one, starting in St. Louis, making its way to Minneapolis, is fully escorted by our Friendship Tours staff. So what that means is actually we will have one of our tour directors. They'll fly with you out, they'll be with you on board, and then they'll also make sure that you get home nice and safe. So if you aren't as confident traveling on your own, this is a great way to do that. Donna, anything special that I didn't talk about on these itineraries that you would want mentioned?
No, I think you did a great job. Thank you.
All right. So then let's talk about the vessels. So we talked a little bit about some of the different ones on the particular trip that we're going to talk about today. And Donna, do you want to highlight what our itinerary is going to be?
Sure. So coming soon, we'll be talking about our itinerary from Chattanooga, Tennessee to Nashville, Tennessee, which is a really rare itinerary. They don't do this itinerary, I think maybe once a year. So back in October, I did Chattanooga to Memphis. So when I saw that they were offering Chattanooga to Nashville, I said, now that is a cool combination. And I grabbed group space on it, and here we are. So it'll be in November of 22, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes. It is on the American Queen. So I was on the American Queen for 25 years ago. So it's hard to believe that now she just celebrated her 25th anniversary. So I was able to travel on the 25th anniversary year on the Queen from Chattanooga. And I can say she looks as beautiful as ever. So they've done a great job keeping her up to date, but keeping that same Victorian and Mark Twain feel on the boat. So it's they've really done an awesome job with the ship over the years.
And she definitely has that 1800s kind of feel and look, but with all those wonderful modern amenities that we're used to. So what I love about the American Queen is she is probably the greatest example of feeling the rhythm of the rivers. And what we mean by that is that she's almost like you're transporting back into that Victorian era. 417 guests, 218 staterooms. She's got staterooms that open up to the outside walking deck that you can see there. She's got suites, she's got bay windows. It's a really neat ship, and that neat boat, that paddle on the back actually is a working paddle. Now she has ozopods and all these wonderful things that help her navigate the river, but it actually is running off of the steam. You can go down and see the engine room. She also, of course, has the wonderful steam calliope. So when you're getting on and off, isn't that something magical, Donna, when you're...
Yes, absolutely. I have about 10 different videos of the calliope playing, and sometimes they'll actually let passengers try it too. It's not as easy as it looks.
Yes, you can learn how to play the calliope, which is kind of a neat thing. So public spaces, as we said, she does have this wonderful Victorian look. So this would be the main lobby. This is looking up the staircase. And of course, now at the holiday time, this is all decorated as well. I don't know if you remember that from those pictures, but really, really neat. This is the JM White dining room. It is definitely a Southern style. It is like going to one of the great ballrooms, has wonderful staff. So you actually can do your breakfast and your dinners. Lots of great opportunities here. This would be the front porch cafe. So this is a little bit sometimes lighter fare. They have snacks. If you look in the back there, you'll see that wonderful coffee machine I was telling you about. They have popcorn that's there all night long. They have different treats. They also do meals in here as well. So in those chafing dishes, they have wonderful things that are done as a buffet. Donna, anything about front porch that you wanted to mention?
No, I just love the location at the front, and my cabin happened to be right above the front porch. So the popcorn smell was very tempting, and ice cream every night. It was definitely interesting, but no, it's a great spot to grab a snack. And if you wanted to have your breakfast, lunch, or dinner here, it's definitely an option, indoor and outdoor seating, which is great.
And so as we talk about that outdoor, look at what's just out there. This is the front of the boat. Those what look like gangplanks are called stages. They're on the front, and literally on the river, if you ever need to go over, you go over to the side and you put those stages, and you can, get right off from there. So that's the beauty of literally being on the river. You just kind of make your way and go with the flow, and it is definitely river time. Now, in addition to the front porch, they have the engine room. This is a bar that's actually at the back. It has these wonderful portholes that you can actually see the paddle wheel going. It has two outside areas that you can go out and see it. And then there's a door that goes down to literally the engine room, and you can watch it. It's manned 24/7, and it's really neat. One of the lead engineers the last time I was on board was actually a woman, and she was fantastic of just explaining how it works. So if there are people who are engineers or want to know more about the workings, you can actually go and take a look at that. Of course, the captain's bar and lounge. This is right before you go into the dining area, where there is a piano player. So before the meals and after, there's wonderful entertainment. There's also the theater, the Grand Salon that we were talking about. Again, this was modeled after the Ford Theater. The Mark Twain Gallery. And again, this is the main area between on the second floor. Then there's the ladies' parlor and the gentlemen's, but they aren't limited. You can go to either one, and they have board games and all kinds of fun things in there. The chart room. So this is where the River Lorien that I was telling you about is often located. And there are charts. You can learn about it. My dad loves to get to different states. On the last cruise we were on, he hadn't been in Alabama, and we were kind of coming close, and he asked the River Laureate, are we actually getting to Alabama? And he said, you are in it right now. And he showed him on a map where we were. And so he got to check that one off his list. So really neat. They do, of course, have a shop on there for some goodies, or if you've forgotten something warm, they've got some fleeces and things. So you can certainly do that. This was the spa treatments that we were talking about. Up on deck, of course, that's where that pool is. The fitness center. This is the engine room that I was describing before. So real working engine and steam engine. So you might enjoy that. The staterooms, let's go through real quick. These would be the open veranda up there. So there are different decks. This is towards the back, category OS. This, of course, would be a beautiful suite. And Donna, do you want to talk about some of these?
Sure. The owner suite, of course, as you can see, is a beautiful, beautiful cabin. And so these are some of that's the luxury suite category LS, and that opens out onto the public. It's like a public open veranda. The deluxe suite, and that has an open veranda as well. And then the junior suite, and you can see that opens out to the open veranda. And then this one is a paddle wheel stateroom. So this one is interesting. This has floor to ceiling windows that actually overlook the paddle wheel. So it's kind of interesting because when I was on board, it was spraying up so much water and everything. I'm like, I'm gonna have to get out there and get my squeegee going or something because I can't see out this window. So no, I thought it's a pretty fun cabin, but not one that we normally have in our groups.
Right. And that one was when they redid recently the ship, that was an add-on. This is
Yeah.
a category that a lot of people really enjoy, which is the category A.
Yes, this is a private veranda stateroom. So this is the only category typically, unless you're in the, I think it was the owner suite, that has a actual private veranda. So you will walk out and you have your own table and chairs and to sit out on, and your entrance to the cabin is from the inner corridor.
Now, this one is a little bit different, right, Donna?
And this is what I had. This is a category B. This is a lovely cabin. And you'll see some pictures that I took of this room when I was on board. And I liked it because it did open to the veranda, but still had a covering over the doorway. So if it was raining and you needed to get into your cabin, any of these, like the B and the C cabin categories, they have the open veranda concept. And it's nice because it's kind of a social atmosphere, right? You know, you're sitting outside, people are walking by, you're talking to people. I loved it. That's me because I always
got a
like to
little
talk to
chair
everybody.
and table generally out
Exactly.
there.
Generally,
I
there's
was on
tables.
the same deck the last time as where the front porch was. So
Yes.
I would actually, when we would pass different locks or waterfalls at night, I could hear it and I would just open up my door and I could either
Yeah.
open it or take a step out. So really nice. You'll notice the bathroom there, beautiful pedestal sinks, really
Yes,
nicely.
they've just redone a lot. I think all of the bathrooms on the ship have been redone and they're beautiful. They have and they've added televisions. I think the first time I sailed on her, she did not, I don't think we turned the TV on one time on this cruise. So.
And actually they have some really neat things. They have some programs that are done through American Queen that are on there. It's actually some neat stuff to watch. You'll notice the beds. So these are all showing just the one bed, but they can be divided. So if there's two of you in a cabin, no problem at all. This would be a category C, so kind of similar as the other one,
Yes.
just it depends on what deck and where. This would be the bay window. So I actually really like these cabins, especially if you're doing one of the itineraries that maybe is in the cusp of a season, might be a little bit colder or things like that. This is a great category to go with. I will tell you there's two, the Jefferson, and I forget what the other name is, that actually it's a community balcony, but it almost looks like it's your own. You get to your cabin from there. The rest of them, you actually enter through the corridor, through the interior of the ship. But on the Jefferson, it actually, often people think it's your private balcony and you're not, but really neat. This is one of my favorite categories. The categories E and the S's. So Donna, do you want to just quickly talk about these as well?
Yeah, the category E is an inside cabin. They are quite small. They are not, I mean, this is what we always say to passengers. This is always a great price, very, very, very good value. So we have a lot of clients that will take this category because they know they're not going to spend a lot of time in their room, but it's still well appointed, still plenty of room for everything, but there is no window. It is completely an interior cabin. And but yet convenient to everything. And if it's something that you're not worried about having an outside cabin, you want to save a little bit of money, this is perfect.
Yeah, and the cabins, again, they go by categories of E and all these different things. They also, when you're there, have names. So like mine last time was North Carolina. So they're all kind of American in their fare. We
And
talked
there
about
are,
the bathroom, so we
sure,
wanted to
yeah,
share
and
that as well.
there are some single cabins, which I was just going to quickly mention, that if anybody is interested in traveling as a single, they do have some limited number of single rooms, and we can get pricing on those for any of our group dates.
They are limited. I think there's 4. Is that right?
I think they've added a few more on the Queen. They've changed some of the ones that used to be double to actual singles. So I think they've added a few more of those.
Excellent. And so in some, there are the bathtubs, and in others, there are walk-ins, correct?
Yes, I believe that the majority of them are bathtubs.
And they do have the bars and everything. Now, this is where I keep calling her a boat and not a ship. And there's a reason, because all of the paddle wheelers are flat bottomed. And so those are referred to as boats. What that means, though, is they're extraordinarily stable. And so my dad, who's in his 80s, he absolutely loves loves going on board the American Queen. And the reason why is he likes to use stairs. He lived in a colonial his whole life. So he actually, because she has the flat bottom, they are extraordinarily stable. So he actually, though it has an elevator, he uses the stairs to go up and down. So there are bars there for you. There's safety, but they are extraordinarily stable vessels. So with that, it comes to our main part of our presentation today. So you've now seen the first part, which is your floating resort. That's what gets you where you're going. And then it's about the places that we actually are visiting. And again, this particular itinerary, you're actually going to be on the Tennessee, the Ohio, the Cumberland rivers, and a little piece of the Mississippi as well. So kind of a unique experience. So let's take a look at the map. So starting in Chattanooga, right, Donna?
Yes. So starting in Chattanooga, the Tennessee River runs. It's interesting. Tennessee is one of the only, rivers that actually enter and exit in a couple of different points, within the same state. So it's kind of interesting. As you can see, it goes down into Alabama, and then we come back up to Kentucky, and then over to back to Tennessee again. So it's a very interesting itinerary. Now I have to say that our itinerary, we had a little bit of a detour because there was a problem with one of the locks. So the captain kind of had to skirt around. We did miss one day in a port, but we got to see a whole, different part of a river that we would not normally see. So this is just the beauty of traveling on the river.
And rivers are fluid, so changes do kind of happen. If a river is too low or too high, they do have to make some changes. If you look up at the top of the left screen where it says Paducah, right? So that's the Ohio. At the very end, that river by the O, that's the Mississippi. So I misspoke. You're not going to quite get to the Mississippi.
I wasn't going to correct you though.
That's okay. She's like, he was wrong. But this is a wonderful itinerary because you do get to these really unique parts of America and of the river specifically. So let's go for a little voyage, Donna. Take it over.
All right. So starting in Chattanooga, I was so pleasantly surprised. Of course, everybody's heard of the Chattanooga choo-choo, right? So
and of course, you want to go choo-choo.
Exactly. So when I first landed, I had some time, and they have outside the hotel that so when you fly into Chattanooga, you stay for one night at the hotel. You always have a pre-hotel stay. And in Chattanooga, you stay at a hotel there. And it's so nice because they actually have a free transportation, a motor coach that can take you around the city. So you just wait outside the hotel, and then you can get off at whatever stops you'd like. And you can get off at you will see the choo-choo on the tour the next day. But I particularly was in so much of a rush. I had to get on up there and see it the first day that I landed. And so you can take that transportation if you have extra time all around, and it's just a great city to explore. But your visit would not be complete without that. During your city tour the next day, another really interesting place is Point Park, which is up Lookout Mountain. And I did not realize how scenic Chattanooga was until I visited, and we took the incline railroad. And on the tour, you will take the motor coach, but there is also an incline railroad, which is like the world's steepest mile or something, up to the top of Lookout Mountain to Point Park. And this is the view you see when you get there. It's spectacular. I have so many pictures of this. You just see, you feel the history. I mean, on this itinerary, it's you could call it a Civil War theme, because a lot of the ports, of course, along the river have a lot of Civil War history. So you see that here at Point Park. And we also then, on our free time, we went to, I think on the next slide, I'm not sure. Yeah, we went to Ruby Falls. And on the left is a monument up at Point Park, and you can see what a beautiful day we had. But you can also see we're in jackets and some layers, because this is, when I was there, it was October. This cruise it was late October into November, same as this date. So, you will have, you still have some fall colors. but you will be like wearing layered clothing because your temperatures will probably be somewhere in like the 50s, 60s, but can get as warm as 70s. So, you know, it was a really beautiful day that day. And we did take the trip into Ruby Falls. You take an elevator down like 140 feet, and then you walk through these series of pathways to Ruby Falls, named after the wife of the gentleman who founded it. They have a whole light show when you get there, and it's pretty spectacular. So if we have free time, Uber is available. It's awesome. Definitely need to make a trip to Ruby Falls with some free time for sure. And this is the Tennessee River. So what's neat about this itinerary, when the steamboat was leaving, I was surprised that we weren't sailing away on that day that we boarded. After the city tour, we got onto the ship, and I was wondering why we weren't setting sail. And I thought, oh, maybe they're waiting for people whose flights were late. And they said, oh, no, we're not leaving till tomorrow morning. So you actually stay on board overnight and you don't sail out to the next day, because this is a very scenic journey. And the captain said to us, why would we want to leave and miss the Tennessee Gorge in the middle of the night? I mean, you'd be sleeping. So these are some of the views as we were sailing out of Chattanooga down the Tennessee River. And that's the view from on the right side. That's my cabin. So we would stand outside, we'd exit out, and we just were constantly in just, it's such beautiful scenery. So to me, this is my favorite part, is cruising. So you can see the stages off the front. I was standing on the deck outside the front porch and looking at the view as we were traveling. And this was me sitting on the bed, leaving the doors open on the left side, leaving the doors open, just watching the river go by. So it's just was a great day. And these are some of the scenes along the river as well. Always
And
took
in this
advantage
picture,
of
you can see Donna's cabin, and she was
yes. So standing in the doorway, it has the 2 twin beds. And of course I have a glass of wine, because it's nothing better than sailing down in the afternoon for happy hour and enjoying the view.
And included now, right?
Exactly, included now. So I love the homes along the river. Our first stop on the itinerary was Decatur, Alabama. And what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to go into each stop that that you'll see in each of these ports. But what's so nice about where it docks is most of the time you can walk right off the ship, and with the map, you can do a lot of these things right from the ship if you don't want to get onto the motor coach. So
so just in case you don't realize, those pig stacks, that's the American Queen. That's how close it is.
That's how close it is to the park. And they do usually dock in a lovely, lovely park area. So you can walk right off, and on your way to the motor coach, you're kind of walking through a nice area there.
And just to the left is the pilot house, if you're looking at the black stacks, and those stacks actually go up and down. So if they come to something and they need to bring them down, they can actually do that.
So what we'll do is on your hop on, hop off tour, these are the places that it will stop. Obviously, these are all beautifully restored buildings, a lot of history here. The local governments of all of these places that we visited, they took a lot of time, including the citizens of the area, to make sure that the history was preserved. A lot of railroad history here, of course. During the Civil War, that played like a huge part. The railways, no battle was fought like more than 20 miles from any railroad in any direction, because that's how they got supplies everywhere. So you'll see a lot of restored buildings, and the people that you meet when you go into these places, they just walk you through the history. This is the Morgan County Archives, and a lot of time and effort has been taken to not forget the history of the area that you're visiting. So you can spend as little or as much time in each of these places. This theater was famous in the 20s for its vaudeville acts, and it's got a great history. And you walk through, you'll see all the people that have performed here, and there's quite a few major names on the list, but they have restored that. It's on the National Register of Historic Places. So they've it's really kind of a cool place. Carnegie Visual Arts Center, again, used to be a public library, is now a visual arts center with a lot of, with every type of visual arts you can imagine.
And these
So
are
there's many places.
uniquely American.
Exactly. And it's just so interesting though, because you can stop or go to one and you could end up spending all day and say, oh my gosh, I mean, you wouldn't probably spend all day, but you can spend a lot of time in one place or as little.
And if anyone's ever been on a hop on, hop off, you have your guide that's doing narration, and then you get to a different place. And there are actually they look like little signs that have numbers, and you have a map that has each. Sometimes they're very close, so you might walk from one to the other. Other times they might be a little further or something might not interest. So the buses continually go around and you get back on. And even the motor coaches are very special. They are made for people of all abilities. So they actually have lifts on them if somebody were in a wheelchair. When the boat actually comes into different areas, sometimes the river's lower, so there are hills. What I love for my dad is they actually had golf carts. And there was a gentleman, his name was David. And every morning David would say, hello, fine gentlemen, to my dad when he would come out. He's like, your chariot awaits. He'd bring him up the hill to where the motor coach was. And then he would just board, and there are special seats at the front for anyone that has mobility issues, and really beautifully done. And these motor coaches travel along. So each place you go, it's the same one. So you get to know those drivers. They have different guides at each place because they're local guides that are experts in the area. And it's just a wonderful way to travel.
It is, definitely. And, in the morning when the narrator is on board, because typically the narrator will be on board in the morning. And then as the day goes on, that coach just continually keeps looping around to collect people, but they do a great job narrating at the beginning of the day for sure. If you're not interested in the hop on, hop off, and you really are like into space, you don't really think of Huntsville, Alabama as being a place that you would actually go see, have Alabama Air and Space Museum. But after you go here, you'll be like, okay, Port Canaveral, Houston, it's awesome. This is one of the only places where an actual space rocket. I think there's only 3 in the world where they have an actual space rocket on display, which is pretty cool. Those are a couple of pictures that I took, and it's so funny because I was fascinated with taking pictures of the paddle wheel all the time. But after I took this picture on the right, I noticed that it's a very similar picture to what they have in their brochure. So I was like, God, maybe I have missed my calling in taking photos or something.
And if you see the round windows there, that's the engine bar.
Yes,
and that's actually where you can look out and get some great pictures of the wheel going by. So then you're on to Alabama, and this is Florence.
So you're still staying, in Alabama, and you're in Florence, Alabama. And so on this particular day, they had quite a few different things to see as well. So again, another great opportunity to do hop on, hop off. This also was in a beautiful park area. On the next slide, I think it will show, so out there's the park area where the ship docks. So marina was literally right down the side there. So if you want to just take a walk down or stroll down after you get off your hop on, you can see I took a picture from the park of the Queen sitting there docked. And what's so cool is that this itinerary is not done very often. So we were like, all kinds of attention was being drawn to the ship. When she would come in, people would be pulling in and looking and taking pictures because they're just not used to seeing her on the Tennessee River. So it was pretty special. There's a mom with her daughter taking pictures under the sign. So it was very, very cool.
You're really VIPs when you come in.
Exactly. And so they're waving from their homes as you're going by. It's pretty fun. Hop on, hop off. You'll stop at the visitor center. They had some pretty cool gifts in there to purchase if you're looking for that. And you can grab maps and different things. Pope's Tavern and Museum.
Lots and lots of history for sure.
Yes, Civil War for sure. So again, very, very, these cities have done a lot for the arts to really get people involved. This is the Frank Lloyd Wright House. I mean, very, very built with cedar, brick, glass. I mean, all from natural materials. And you can see some of these, everything from the faucets on up are, his design. So you stroll through the entire house and there's a gentleman in there answering questions. It's a beautiful, 2-acre property that sweeps down to the river. This is the Florence Indian Mound and Museum, and you can actually see the Indian Mound from the motor coach as you're turning the corner, but this is a really interesting museum for sure. Oh, and if you're interested in music, the Sweet Home Alabama tour is a premium tour, and this will talk about all of the musicians and how they made their fame in the state of Alabama. And people like the Rolling Stones, Elton John, they stop at one of the studios to actually they show you one of the famous. It's called the Muscle Shoals studio. It's a very famous studio that a lot of people like Willie Nelson and Bob Dylan, everybody got their start at. So that's a kind of a great tour. The Hall of Fame is very, very interesting. So now we're moving into back to Tennessee. So we kind of dipped down out of Tennessee into Alabama. Now we're working our way back up to Savannah. And Savannah is mostly famous for the Battle of Shiloh. So one of the more famous battles. That is a premium tour. On the Hop On, Hop Off tour, the Tennessee River Museum is on the list there. And again, this has got 7 permanent exhibits in it that are just absolutely amazing. And one of them is on the Muscle Shoals and the pearl button, how they got the pearls from the mussels and different things. And they have the Trail of Tears permanent display, which is really fascinating. A paleontology display. So I really enjoyed this one as well.
There's all these just treasures that people don't even know about.
I know,
all throughout
you really
our country.
You really just can't even imagine. This is the William Shutt House, which actually is where the mayor of Savannah lives. But and they actually do outdoor events at this particular house. But on this particular Hop On, Hop Off, you pass a lot of historic homes, and some of them are open to the public, some are privately owned. So, this could be one of the privately owned homes, but a few of them are open because they're actual museums. Like this is Cherry Mansion, and this was where U.S. Grant, his headquarters were for the Battle of Shiloh. So very, very cool. And we had a General Grant character come on board the ship and did a whole presentation on and stayed in character for the entire 2 days that he was on board with us. And it was really, really fascinating. But found out the Battle of Shiloh was actually on my birthday. So of course I had to make sure I went to see the battleground. And this is a premium tour to the National Military Park. And they have experts on board. So if you were just a passenger visiting here on your own with a rental car, you would never get the same feeling as if you're on an American Queen tour, because the historian is amazing during this tour, and they take you around this park and really talk in depth about how the Battle of Shiloh was fought. It was what
people don't realize is these were, we all learn about Gettysburg and the battles that happened maybe a little bit more in the East, but the Western front of the Civil War, the Mississippi and all these rivers is what really won the war, being able to control the rivers and then eventually the railroads as well. But for those that are Grant aficionados or people that want to learn a little bit more about that, it's really fascinating, and that history is all throughout this tour. But there's also wonderful arts and crafts and different things. So from there, we're going to leave and go onto the Ohio River, and this will get a whole different feel. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And this is such a really quaint river town, which has been made famous, of course, by the National Quilt Museum. And Brett's mom, Lois, who was my mentor for many years, she went to Paducah on the American Queen, and she came back and said, you have got to get to Paducah, Kentucky at some time in your life, because you will not believe this quilt. And I said, I am not interested in quilts at all. I don't, but I said, you know what, for Lois, I'm going to get there someday. And I was so excited because I finally made it, but this is so cool. So stop here for a minute.
Yep.
This wall is actually the other side of where you saw me standing. This is the other side. And this is the flood wall murals. And these span 2 blocks. And these murals were started 20 years ago. And they feature scenes from all over the Paducah area and historical scenes. And really just a beautiful way to, I mean, these flood walls used to serve a purpose, which they don't need to have that anymore, but they created these beautiful murals on the other side. And you could spend, it's an actual stop. Like you could go through and then you could buy a book at the gift shop and it'll actually tell you the story about each of them. So it's very, very interesting.
And
And it's
Paducah is
right
a
off the ship.
great
Right where
example
the ship
of
is.
all these rivers coming together. Also right by this is a big train. And again, that's the super highways of commerce basically was on these rivers, then onto the trains and all the different areas. And so Paducah is really where three rivers kind of come together. So it's a great area. And then you can see, so on right where Donna had been standing at the wall, that's where the ship is. Or the
So
boat. We have to remember
right
this is a
there.
boat.
I know.
Yes. And I love the mural. See, with the doorway, they've painted the queen there. That's actually part of the mural. But really, really neat. And then, of course, the highlight of Paducah.
Yes. And
I
I
thought,
thought,
who would
I
ever
said,
spend time?
I am not into quilts at all, but these are quilts. They are not paintings. They are not drawings. These are quilts. So even if you are not a quilter and you are not interested in it, this is just you could spend a good hour in here wandering around. I think there's over like 600. If I don't even, I'm trying to think if there was, I think there was like 600 quilts in there. But they're just the way they did it. The tiger one, there's 16 different tigers in that quilt. And you stand there and everybody stands around and they're like, there's one, there's one. And then sometimes it's the word tiger. Sometimes it's just his face. And you stand back or closer in, then you start to see more, but there's 16 in that quilt. So the talent is beyond for me. I know I get excited over quilts now. Never was, now I am.
Lots of Civil War history here as well.
Yes,
As you make your way
absolutely.
through the town. And of course, when you're in Kentucky, you're always going to run into some good whiskey. And so you might
Yeah.
have some opportunities to do some tastings. It's just a neat town to go and
Very
explore.
artsy, very creative. Again, another railroad museum.
The day we were in, they had a farmer's market in the middle of town.
Yes, they're always doing something there for sure. And this talks, you learn a lot about how the steamboats did play a role in the Civil War, whether they were hospital ships or moving troops, they played a pretty significant role. And this is the premium tour. And I believe a lot of famous people, this used to be a haven for African-American musicians, and a lot of famous people like B.B. King stayed here, Iva and Tina Turner. So your guide is, she's awesome. She's in the front door there and she takes you in and gives you all the gossip of the hotel.
So if anyone ever saw the Green Book, that movie, there were areas that African-Americans couldn't stay. And these were, the Chitlin Trail was a whole series of places that performers and different people could go to. So it's actually really interesting. And then the Cumberland River.
Yes, and then we turn onto the Cumberland River. Now, this is a portion that I did not do because we went to Memphis. So on our cruise, we went down the Mississippi into Memphis. On your itinerary, on this itinerary in November that we are featuring, we will stop in Dover. So I can't speak to actually being here, but I can tell you that it's famous for Fort Donelson, and it's got a lot of history. This is a national battlefield, but also a national cemetery from many, many wars. And I think they said that there was over, I think, thousands and thousands of graves here at this particular cemetery. It's very, very interesting. And there's a digital library that you can actually, look at.
And Donaldson was a general under Grant. He's a very interesting guy, but it's a national park. It's definitely a wonderful visit. This would be a little bit more of the Dover Hotel. So again, all the great Americana. Here would be Stewart County Visitor Center. And Fort Donelson, again, you'll see the battlefields, the Skinner Historic Museum. And then this is one of my favorite things about being on the boat. As you're traveling, you'll come along locks and dams And this is a video that Donna took. She did a great job. How long did it take you to get this
Oh,
time
I had
lapse
to
video?
stand still for an hour. And it's a time lapse video. So that whole process took, I think, over an hour, but it is. And because, like Brett said, your door opens to the outside. So all of a sudden you'll hear something going on and you'll say, oh, I think we might be approaching a lock, or you'll see the spotlight come out and you go outside and they give you robes in your cabin. So if you're in your pajamas, you always got a robe, which I was in my robe. And that's why you don't see the picture of me that my roommate took, because I was in my robe standing there taking these photos.
You're
But
not the only one. Lots
fascinated
of people.
I'm fascinated by the locks. I mean, you travel through at least 8 or 10 of them, mostly during a few of them at night, a couple of them during the day. So, I mean, just the engineering involved, it was, to me, it's just so fascinating. But yeah, so that was kind of a fun process to take that. I was determined I was going to wait till the very end. So, and then we land in Clarksville, and Clarksville is your gateway to Nashville. So when we land in Clarksville, you'll be transferred off. This particular itinerary, which is unusual, we usually don't stay in the city that we're ending in, but on this tour, we decided that because it's Nashville, we need to stay for a couple of days. So we do have 2 nights accommodations in Nashville, and we stay at the Gaylord Opryland Hotel, which I think everybody has heard of before. She's absolutely beautiful. This is a picture of
She is like a cruise ship at land.
It's like
amazing.
Disney
She's
World
got
of Nashville or something. It's
rivers, multiple restaurants. You literally can take a boat on this river in there. She's right down the street from the Opryland, Grand Ole Opry. And of course, if you're going, you have to go to see a show at the Grand Ole Opry.
And so our tour includes a show and a backstage tour. So this portion of, of course, everything is based on availability, but this particular 2-night post package tends to sell out. So we do have it included with a caveat, as long as it doesn't sell out. So we recommend that people book quickly for something like this, because like I said, this itinerary is only done once a year. So it includes a city tour, Country Music Hall of Fame, the Grand Ole
So
Opry.
in Nashville, the reason I'm sharing this with you, this picture of the river, over to the left, that's the main part of the city. If you go over these bridges and over to your right, that's actually where the Grand Ole Opry and all that. The original Grand Ole Opry was Ryman Auditorium, which was more in the downtown area, but it became so big, they moved it out there. So you're kind of staying out in Opryland, which is amazing and near the Grand Ole Opry, but you do want to get to Nashville, and that's why we do this great city tour. This, of course, is Broadway and is so much fun to go to the honky tonks. And then exactly what Donna was talking about, there's the Nashville Hall of Fame, which is a great time and great visit. So this wouldn't be complete without spending some time in Nashville. And Donna, I think the last slide we have, of course, is...
So that was my favorite thing. I had the late sitting for dinner. So I'm a firm believer, if you can wait till 8 o'clock to eat dinner, I know everybody's like groaning, there's always the front porch cafe for a snack, okay? Appetizer in the front porch, watch the sunset, millions
They
of
do the show, so they usually have entertainment.
prior to dinner. So
Yep.
sunset, show, dinner, engine room. It's a great itinerary for your evening.
And
so those
wonderful
are my
way to enjoy all the things that are included on this trip. So let's talk a little bit about people always ask, what are the safety protocols? Because, COVID still exists and is around us. So very important. They've been a leader in making sure that people have been safe and secure. And so still fully vaccinated. You will get a test prior to going. These all could change. We never know what is going to be from week to week these days, but these are, when we tape this, what the current protocols are. So they actually do the testing right now at the hotel, so you don't have to try to get all that done. So that's kind of nice. I believe that some of the mask rules and things, those are always evolving. And then you can see what they're doing for cleaning. They're obviously using all of the safe protocols for like the buffet, obviously, if they're serving or different things. So they're always adapting and making sure that they're staying within the area. Now, the other nice thing is you're in the United States on these trips. So you have all your ability to use if you're on Medicare, you have all the different things that you're able to use. You know, you're not far. If anything ever happens, literally, the boat can pull right over and you can get any assistance or help. So that's one of the beauties of these trips, is that you are right in the United States. Very simple to fly in the United States. You know, you don't need all the things that some of the other countries need. So just some stuff to keep in mind. Now, the booking process. Very, very simple. Donna, do you want to run through the booking process?
Sure, absolutely. So you call the ship shop, you speak with Barbara or myself. We help select the cabin, discuss insurance, payment options. And what we do is we usually do a two-step process with deposits. We have collect the first deposit, then a few months later, we do collect a second deposit. That's usually when we start to look at the airfare. And then we do the final payment. And the final payment is usually about 130 to 140 days out. So it's quite significantly early. The cruise line does require payments pretty early, as most river cruise companies do. But we'll walk you through the whole process and discuss availability of everything. And yeah,
because these are smaller ships, and because people are still so they're looking for smaller numbers. They're looking to stay sometimes in the United States. These have been really popular and have booked. In fact, some of the itineraries you can't even get on till 23. So if you have interest in any of the rivers that we talked about today, or maybe you want to learn a little bit more about the ocean, both the Great Lakes and the ocean product, or even their wonderful expedition, we're happy to share that with you, and I'm sure we'll do something. But for today, we want to say thank you for all of you that joined us. And so, Christina, I know that you were nice enough to offer a special $100 per cabin onboard credit for anybody that books between today and April 15th. So that's a little bit extra. We wanted to say a big thank you to everybody. And of course, we do say thank you. You can get in touch with us at our phone number, 860-243-1630, or friendshiptours.net. And again, we really appreciate, I know we went a little bit long.
I know, I think that's my fault.
No, you did a great job. There's just so much to share, and we hope you enjoyed. So, Christina, thank you for joining us. Did we mess anything up? Did we miss anything?
No, you guys did fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us.
And I didn't look in the chat. Did we have any questions that came in?
I don't think so. I don't see any. See a lot of great familiar names, and so excited to have our regulars and some new folks on board with us today.
Excellent. Well, we will get this video out to everybody again. You can go through and look at the parts that you want. We're really excited about all of the American Queen voyages that we have scheduled for the end of this year, 2022, and of course, then into 2023. And Donna, thanks for going through this. I know it's a lot of work. And
no worries.
Somebody had to go on the road, right?
All day long. And if anybody wants me to go in November with them, just let me know. I'll go back again.
Well,
if anybody needs a roommate, just let me know.
We're going to say thanks to everybody. We will go ahead and stop our recording, but we'll get the video out to you right away. And if you have any questions, just give us an email or a call and we'll go from there. Thanks so much.